Have you ever noticed that there's a guy who can make millionaires, businessmen, rappers, and even Hollywood celebrities really nervous?
Many men wish that go, shorty. Girl, it's easy to love me now.
For more than 20 years, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson has built a reputation that's almost impossible to copy. He survived 9 gunshots, destroyed entire careers, and won some of the biggest wars in hip-hop history.
That Ja Rule's coming at right here.
Man, 50 Cent and the G, you know? What's mine's is mine's. What's yours is mine's. Wish you would come take one of my awards so I could black as in front of everybody.
With completely unfiltered jokes and by acting like a true tough guy. But there's a crazy detail that a lot of people don't even notice. It's that behind this funny persona on the internet, there's still the guy who once terrorized a big part of the music industry. The only difference is that back then he used diss tracks and pa to be able to terrorize people. Nowadays he uses social media and the algorithm, using them heavily to his advantage. So, in today's video, you'll understand how that kid from Queens who started out selling substances and is now a billionaire ended up becoming one of the biggest haters on the internet. But before I tell you all this, what's up guys? Gerson Saldanha here. Listen, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, come on, subscribe now, leave a like, turn on the bell, turn on notifications. Hey, you guys know that I started a mentorship program for those who want to make videos like this and even learn how to communicate better on camera. Man, I'll leave the link to my WhatsApp here in the description or in the first pinned comment. Go there, message us because spots are super limited and I'm almost closing enrollment for this class, really close. So without further ado, let's go because the story is really long, the origin and the trauma. Curtis James Jackson III was born on July 6, 1975 in Queens, New York. He was the son of Sabrina Jackson, a teenager who was only 15 years old and had to raise him alone. And that happened because young Curtis never even met his father, but Curtis's childhood was far from normal, you know? That's because where he was raised, right in the south side of Jamaica, Queens, this place was considered one of the most violent neighborhoods in New York at the end of the 70s and especially in the 80s. You've likely seen that in a movie or documentary. And for that, Sabrina Curtis's mother had to get into the local drug trade selling some substances. If you know what I mean, I can't say it directly or YouTube might remove this video. There will be many censored words here since you understand how it is. Because of that, young Curtis had to spend most of his early childhood there with his grandparents until when he was 8 years old, the worst thing that could happen to a child happened to him. Sensing that something was wrong, Curtis's uncles went to Sabrina's house to see if everything was okay. When they got there, they found the boy's mother dead. The story is that someone visited the apartment, drugged her drink, she fell asleep, and the person turned on the gas, setting the stage for tragedy. The situation was so crazy that she had been there for days. And man, they only found her after a long time. Then, having lost both parents, Curtis learned the golden rule of the streets very early on. Either you learn to fight or you end up being the victim. At 11 years old, he started training in boxing to learn how to defend himself, but boxing was no match for it. For what was about to happen on those street corners, seeing the local drug dealers wearing jewelry, expensive clothes, and flashy cars driving around the neighborhood. Young Curtis made a decision while his grandparents thought he was in some extracurricular activity at school. At 12 years old, Curtis was selling substances. The name change in the mentor didn't take long before life demanded its price. At 14 years old, Curtis was already caught by the police for trying to bring substances into the school. The police raided his house and found more substances there along with $15,000 he had stolen from someone. Under the law at the time, he could have gotten 9 years in prison, but since he was still a minor, he received a different sentence, right? Which I think was good for him, or maybe bad, I don't know, because he had to spend 6 months in a military camp. Well, I say it was good because when he got out of there, his mindset was already somewhere else, even though he still hung out on street corners. Now, rap started to become a real path for him. him, a way to change his life and turn his story around for good. That's because in 1996, his destiny changed. In a chance meeting with Jam Master Jay, the legendary DJ from Run DMC. He also happened to listen to that kid's demos and thought his aggressiveness was felt very real, straight from the streets. He was singing everything with a lot of heart, with a lot of truth. So the veteran thought there was talent there that needed to be polished. At that time, he signed with Curtis, his mentor. The kid helped him learn how to write songs, how to interpret stories, and also how to sing hooks, which nowadays is one of the most famous trademarks of 50 Cent, right? What we know him for the most are the hooks in his songs, even though he's a gangster rap guy. Then at 21 years old, he decided to leave the past behind, or at least change what that past looked like. He finally adopted the name 50 Cent as his stage name, if we can call it that. For him, this name was a metaphor for real change. Inspired by a real-life robber from Brooklyn named Kelvin Martin, who was also known there for stealing anything. It didn't matter the size, and 50 Cent's message to the world was very clear. It was like, I'm going to get what I want no matter how big the challenge is. So man, what about the music industry? They were about to find out that he wasn't playing around, not with the stealing tactics, and the first big trouble for the newcomer who was arriving on the scene. The best strategy to get to the top was the classic one, right? Try to please everyone, do some networking, suck up to the rap veterans, but for 50 Cent, that didn't work. You must have noticed as a kid, he wasn't ordinary, man. He was always in a hurry, hungry for more, wanting things to happen quickly, and tried to use what he learned on the streets and music. Then in 1999, he dropped the track that blew everyone's mind, How to Rob.
DJ, take off that tight ass mic. I rob pun without a gun. That just piece and run. This nigga went.
Man, the lyrics said exactly what the title said, right? He rapped about how he was gonna try to rob. No, I don't even need quotation marks, right? Actually robbing the jewelry of the biggest rap and R&B stars of that time, like Jay-Z and even Will Smith. Of course, he didn't just mention them, right? He also mentioned P. Diddy. Also, but some rappers from that time were really upset with that 50 Cent lyric and promised retaliation, while others like Jay-Z himself, right? They realized the hype and the marketing behind it, and man, they respected the success that track had on the streets. But what we need to know is that 50 Cent's plan worked perfectly, and kind of overnight, everyone knew who Curtis 50 Cent Jackson was. But then this me against the world attitude started to escalate into the real world, and it went way, way beyond the microphones. So a relationship with another rapper, also from the same area as 50 Cent, started to go sour. And a lot, yes, I'm talking about him, Ja Rule. The beef started on the street when supposedly one of 50 Cent's allies stole a chain from Ja Rule. And instead of putting out the fire, 50 Cent threw more gasoline on it with the track Your Life's on the Line, directly attacking his rival. It was supposed to stay just in the music, just in rap, but it also escalated into something more physical. So fights in the streets, in the studios and all that were super common. 50 Cent was playing with fire, going head to head with the guys from Murder Incorporated who, man, according to several investigations that were done later, right? They had some connections with the toughest guys in New York. That's why there was a warning that the game had gotten very dangerous. For 50 Cent, it started to get real, and it happened in the worst way possible. Straight talk, the miracle of 9 shots. On May 24th, 2000 Danger came knocking at 50 Cent's door in the worst way possible. He was sitting in the backseat of a car that was parked in front of his grandmother's house. When another car pulled up next to the one he was in, a professional shooter got out of that car and shot 50 Cent 9 times. The shots hit several parts of his body, like his legs, arms, hip, chest, and worst of all, one of them hit his left cheek, injuring his jaw and knocking out some of his teeth. In the middle of all that, 50 Cent tried to pull his piece, but it didn't work. The attacker ran away, leaving him there vulnerable and badly hurt. His friend who was with him took him to the hospital in a bad state since he was already in rough shape. The doctors even told the family that they would need to do surgery on this part of the jaw. And maybe if he survived, he would never be able to speak again. But man, incredibly, fate had other plans. After 13 days in the ICU, 50 Cent left that hospital with his mouth completely stitched up, and it stayed that way for 5 months. But most importantly, the guy was alive, and the wound on his mouth ended up becoming one of his biggest trademarks, which is the slurred voice that the rapper has, and for many is considered one of the biggest things that sets him apart when he raps. Later investigations pointed out that the man who did all that was named Daryl Hommelbaum. a feared hitman from Queens and former bodyguard of the boxer Mike Tyson, according to the story, acting on orders from guys on the corner connected to Murder Incorporated. And all of this happened. But as you know, in a life of crime, things happen really fast. And 3 weeks after what happened to 50 Cent, this Daryl Hommelbaum was found dead, taking the secret of who ordered the whole thing to the grave. But instead of being destroyed by fear, 50 Cent used the scars on his body like an invisibility cloak. He was no longer just a rapper from the streets. He was the guy that death couldn't take, and that reputation would go on to follow him for the rest of his life. The industry turning its back on him and the birth of G-Unit to the misfortune of many haters. 50 Cent had survived the first part of the battle, but the second part would come from the music industry itself, turning against him, fearing retaliation and everything linked to 50 Cent then. At that time, the record label that had just signed him before the 9-shot incident ended up terminating the contract. Its name was Columbia Records. If I haven't mentioned it before, Columbia kind of abandoned 50 Cent. They basically said, man, we don't want any involvement with you. And they had a reason. That's because he had just recorded a song called Thug Love with Destiny's Child. Yes, that group, that trio with Kelly, Michelle, and Beyonce. Man, for many years, Destiny's Child was associated with like an image of purity, right? The girls were really young and had a very young audience. With 50 Cent marked for death on the streets, the managers and label panicked. They decided to cancel the music video and erase 50 Cent's name from any mention of this song. I'm not only referring to Destiny's Child. 50 Cent planned to collaborate with several other artists before his big release.
Sick part is, all that bullshit excites me.
That is overnight. Just like everyone got to know 50 Cent's name now, man, he was simply the most toxic guy in the music industry. But instead of accepting defeat, 50 Cent took the money he still had left and went back to New York with a brilliant strategy. He joined up with his childhood friends Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo and founded his own group, G-Unit. Since the traditional channels, record labels, and radio stations had closed their doors to him, he decided to kind of bootleg his own music. So he started recording dozens of tracks completely independently and releasing mixtapes from the streets, distributed illegally by street vendors and out of car trunks all over New York. G-Unit would simply take the beats from the most famous songs of the time and put much more aggressive and real rhymes over them. The music industry's boycott plan failed miserably because after that, the streets of New York became completely obsessed with G-Unit's mixtapes. Then the inevitable happened because 50 Cent became too big to be ignored, and the tape that would change his life forever. At that time, it was about to fall into the hands of one of the greatest rappers of that era, Eminem's endorsement and the top of the world. In 2002, the buzz that 50 Cent was making in New York crossed the United States and ended up in Detroit, right in Eminem's lap.
Fans, do you have the camera? Do you have the camera? When he decides he's not gonna do it, you find out who's gonna be the number. I'm like, huh? All right. He gives the order, he gets tired.
Then, impressed by the hunger, talent, and survival story of that guy, Eminem didn't waste any time and took the tape to the legendary producer Dr. Dre. Together, they decided to take on what the entire music industry feared at that time and signed a $1 million contract with 50 Cent. And the result of this trio's union ended up becoming one of the biggest earthquakes in hip-hop history, and I'm not exaggerating, you know what I mean. And then the world finally got to know 50 Cent, a classic on the album Get Rich or Die Trying, which came out in 2003. So then, I don't need to say that this album was driven by massive hits, starting with the classic In the E. Of course, there were others like 21 Questions.
I just wanna chill and catch stunts in my 7-foot.
And of course, there was PIMP.
I don't know what you heard about me, but if you can't get a dollar.
And PIMP, still as legendary today as before. Many men, you say?
Oh, many men, many men.
That song, by the way, was very realistic and very autobiographical, and even today, people are still catching references that 50 Cent made in that track. So much so that it's trending on TikTok and people make YouTube videos analyzing it. Anyway, in the end, 50 Cent's album Get Rich or Die Trying sold 800,000 copies, right? In just the first week. And then 50 Cent wasn't just a survivor from the streets anymore. Now the guy was a legend known all over the world. And now with his pockets full of money and backed by two rap giants, giants like Dr. Dre and Eminem, man, 50 Cent had the world in his hands, and the first thing he did with that power was crush his enemies, but now not in the way he learned on the streets, right? Now it was literally with the microphone and with a solid fan base, right? Let's be honest, after that, Ja Rule's career and the Murder Incorporated empire were completely crushed, smashed by the giant that 50 Cent had become. Before 2003, they really dominated the charts, but when 50 Cent showed up, man, it was over for them and tough luck for them, right? The song In the Club was released like in the same week that the FBI raided the offices of Murder Incorporated. And man, a lot of things started to fall apart there for Ja Rule, Irv Gotti, and the people who were with them. I think that's all you need to know in this video about 50 Cent, because I've already gone into detail about how Ja Rule's career fell apart in the documentary I made about Ja Rule, which came out last Thursday. After finishing this one about 50 Cent, watch it. The video complements the other one. But it's important for you to know that 50 Cent at that time used interviews, appearances, his songs, and diss tracks to ridicule his rivals, which leads us to conclude so far that 50 Cent managed to beat both the streets and the industry that boycotted him by being even more aggressive than both of them. The monopoly of pop culture, the massacre, and cinema. Well, after blowing up with his first album, 50 Cent basically didn't give the industry or his fans any time to breathe. Between 2004 and 2005, everyone knew his story. Everyone wanted to know more about that rapper, and he really was all anyone was talking about, even here in Brazil. Then, in 2005, he released his second album called The Massacre, which sold over 1 million copies in just 4 days. The whole world was flooded with hits like Candy Shop.
Take you to the candy shop. I let you the lollipop.
Yes, a little bit.
Damn, baby, all I need is a little bit of this, a little bit.
Disco Inferno.
Little mama, show me how you move it. Go ahead, put your back into it.
It didn't matter if you were going to school, if you were going to a party, if you turned on MTV, or if you were just walking down the street and the street vendor was playing it. Man, 50 Cent was everywhere for real, but he didn't stop there. He realized that his story was too cinematic to be confined to the albums and tracks he was releasing. That's when his life story ended up going to the movies with the film Get Rich or Die Trying, which was also the title of his album that, ironically or not, was released. On my birthday, November 9th, I was turning 15 that day, so in that movie, he starred alongside big names like Terrence Howard, who we would later get to know even more because of the series Empire. And also Viola Davis, who needs no introduction here. The movie is considered a classic nowadays, but at the time it was a big flop. Man, everyone criticized 50 Cent's acting, the movie, nobody really paid much attention to it at the time, and those who watched it thought it was too violent. It also got a rating, right, which made it harder for you and the fans to watch because 50 Cent's fans at that time were teenagers, and that movie wasn't for teenagers, and it wasn't just the movie, right? The soundtrack also flopped pretty hard, even though it had names like Quincy Jones attached to some of the songs, but there was one song in particular. There's a song from that movie that plays in an important scene, and the audience gradually started to like it. And you probably already know I'm talking about Window Shopper. I think I know why. Adamir, about this movie, Get Rich or Die Trying, there's also a video here on this channel talking just about it, you know? So when you're done here, go watch that one too. It's awesome. But this image of 50 Cent as one of the most dangerous rappers in rap up until that moment also made its way into video games. Who doesn't remember there was a game called 50 Cent Bulletproof where players could control the rapper himself, trading shots against his mafia enemies? But it went way beyond that. 50 Cent was a brand, literally. There were G-Unit baggy clothes in stores, custom sneakers, flat brim caps, and heavy chains. 50 Cent dictated at that time what young people wore, how they acted, and what they consumed. The clash of titans, the battle against Kanye West, and the end of an era. But at the top of the world, 50 Cent started to get bored. If he had a rival in the streets, then in music, he had another rival. Man, up there at the top where no one could reach him, he needed someone to compete with. So here we begin one of the greatest rivalries in the history of modern rap. For the release of his third studio album titled Curtis, which brought classic hits like the song Ayo Technology, which is a collaboration between 50 Cent and Justin Timberlake. She wants it, so I gotta give it to her, she wants it too. I get money, just got my money, just got my money. 50 Cent publicly challenged a producer who had already become a rapper and was setting the style of the genre at that time. And you probably already know I'm talking about Kanye West. Like, Kanye was also on his way back then to reach the top of the genre, you know? At that time, he was about to release Graduation, but everything happened when 50 Cent realized Kanye would release Graduation the same day as his album Curtis. On September 11, 2007, I think there was something else that competed with the date they released that album, right? But anyway, they chose the date. 50 Cent was so bold that he even promised with all his gangsta attitude. Tough, all fired up that if Kanye West's album sold more than his, man, he would retire from music for good. And man, for you to understand, the context at the time was a real clash of titans because it was street gangsta rap, the traditional style, against a more modern, more avant-garde rap. And in the end, Kanye West ended up winning that sales battle, marking the beginning of a cultural transition in hip-hop. But 50 Cent secured an unbelievable global audience, and of course, obviously, many people attribute that to this. The change in the aesthetics of rap and hip-hop as the second half of the 2000s began, which shifted from gangsta rap to a more alternative rap. And in this whole thing, Curtis from 50 Cent ended up reaching #2 on the Billboard 200, the main album chart in the United States. And Kanye West took first place, if I'm not mistaken. 50 Cent sold 691,000 copies, and Kanye West sold almost 1 million. It was 957,000 both in the first week, even with the changing tides in the industry. 50 Cent still delivered in the following years. The album Before I Self-Destruct in 2009, yes, showing that he still had some writing talent left, and it was pretty dark. And at that time, 50 Cent was super mainstream, doing features with a lot of people. Some say that this isn't one of 50 Cent's best albums, and it's not one of the most memorable. But look, don't you remember that music video with 50 Cent where he was flirting with Kelly Rowland? Then he married her, and they had 3 little black triplets there. If you remember that video, you definitely remember the song Baby by Me with the line, "Have your baby by me, baby." I mean, baby, millionaire. A hit. So man, doesn't that mean this album isn't a flop? Let's see if we finish the 2000s with 50 Cent still at the top of the music scene and redefined the genre and reinvented himself, right, as a rapper over the years. And it was with this legendary status that he built that he himself realized it was time for him to stop rapping about the bad stuff from the streets and start running the business like a true boss, the ruthless business mogul. If the industry thought that 50 Cent would be satisfied with his fancy cars, gold chains, and lots of women, man, they were dead wrong. That's because the instinct he had to dominate the streets and later to dominate music, he would also use to dominate business. Going back a bit real quick, in 2004, instead of accepting a regular fee to do a commercial for a flavored water brand called Vitamin Water, 50 Cent demanded a share of the company's stock in exchange for his image. 3 years later, the giant Coca-Cola bought the brand for a whopping $4.1 billion, and just from that deal alone, it's estimated that 50 Cent pocketed around $100 million tax-free. And then a lot of people realized that he hadn't just become a rich rapper, he had also become an investor, and a billionaire investor at that. And when Hollywood thought it could label 50 Cent as just that guy who failed in the movie Get Rich or Die Trying with a terrible performance, he made his move. The rapper moved to television and created the series Power, which became one of the biggest TV hits in the United States, generating an entire universe of successful spin-offs. He accumulated so much power behind the scenes in film and TV that recently he acquired a colossal property of almost 1 million square meters to build D-Unity Studios, thus becoming one of the biggest owners of independent entertainment enterprises in the world. And it's funny that Curtis has now proven to everyone that an executive suit in a billion-dollar meeting fits him just as well as a bulletproof vest. But the guy wasn't 100% retired, because when everyone thought that his TV and movie empire would be the last part of a successful career, as for 50 Cent, I think he took Hollywood by surprise because no one expected 50 Cent to gain so much power. Using your cell phone screen, the supreme master of trolling and the era of the WhatsApp uncle, this is where 50 50 Cent's story takes a brilliant turn. Let's put it that way. Today, the man who used to scare a lot of people there a lot doesn't need any more tricks, henchmen, you know? That's the guy's battlefield. He literally migrated to social media. 50 Cent became what people out there call a troll, right? That's the guy who's always messing with other people on the internet, but he uses social media, Instagram, you know, to literally be that guy, like that uncle who spams memes on WhatsApp, who posts memes, who mocks people, who makes fun of everyone, with no filter at all and no sense that maybe he could be embarrassing himself on the internet, you know? Hey, want to see some examples of 50 Cent in action? The most iconic case was the fall of P. Diddy, right? While the whole industry was trembling with fear and staying silent. At the height of the serious accusations and investigations against Diddy, 50 Cent was the only guy who spent months mocking him. Every day. On Instagram, he posted brutal memes announcing that he would make a documentary about his rival's crimes and mercilessly destroying Diddy's image. And as you know, 50 Cent is so relevant in the industry that this documentary actually got made and it's on Netflix. And he doesn't spare anyone, not even his peers who are also moguls and who also started out as rappers. For example, Jay-Z himself, 50 Cent is always poking at Jay-Z, calling the guy secretive and overrated. He also goes after his old rival, Kanye West. Whenever he gets the chance, 50 Cent mocks Kanye West because of his public outbursts. That's when he goes in. As you also saw in the last Bow Wow video, damn, 50 Cent was there at the club with him throwing money at the dancers. Bow Wow went there, took 50 Cent's money, and 50 Cent went online and exposed everything for everyone to see. He started a public campaign to humiliate the kid into giving back every cent. He still clashes with Ja Rule, but now it's all online, or so the story goes. That's when he bought tickets for 200 rows at Ja Rule's show, which was highly anticipated just so the concert would be empty. And the news was all over the media and would go way beyond hip-hop, you know?
What, like the first 4 rows in his concert? It was like on Groupon for $15.
The funny thing is that he really embraced this persona and not even his son escapes from it. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the terrible edits he makes with Photoshop and other apps look just like WhatsApp stickers. But with all this, he does it while promoting his shows, drinks, or any other business. He takes advantage of the hype to humiliate someone in the same post as if it were the most normal thing in the world, okay? There's one thing he really loves, it's when someone declares bankruptcy, says they went broke. Man, that's a perfect opportunity for 50 Cent to go there and make fun of them. Floyd Mayweather, for example. He became a joke for years after 50 Cent offered $1 million donation to a charity. If the former boxer could read just one page from a Harry Potter book, yes, a post that went viral all over the world, and not even music legends are safe. He even made fun of Madonna, man, saying she's just a grandma trying to get attention. Anyway, I said all this because I want you to understand that anyone can be picked on by 50 Cent. I include myself making this video, and you too if you say something silly in the comments, so stay sharp. But seriously guys, the fear that 50 Cent inspires in people today isn't about physical confrontation anymore, it's the fear of having your reputation shredded by the guy who nowadays is a master of sarcasm and man is a legend in a musical genre that brings back a lot of memories for all of us, but who can't be canceled. In other words, the whole industry knows that if you go head to head with 50 Cent on the internet, he won't back down, he'll double down and mess up your online life. The platform changed, the clothes changed, and the vest was replaced by designer suits. But the mentality of destroying the enemy that he learned back there on the corners of Jamaica, Queens is still the same. And that's why even acting like an old guy on WhatsApp, 50 Cent still scares everyone. But here's the big provocative question I wanted to leave in this video. Man, did 50 Cent get like this after turning 50? Just kidding, did he get more playful as he got older? I'll tell you no. Even though 50 Cent has built up this tough guy image in his music and everyone sees him as a survivor that nobody can mess with, man, 50 Cent has always been known for having a really cool sense of humor. In other words, laughing at people's situations has always been just as much a trademark of 50 Cent as his tough, aggressive side. Anyone who's been following 50 Cent behind the scenes since the 2000s knows I'm not making this up. There are dozens of testimonials on the internet from fans who met him back in his prime during the get rich or die trying era. And everyone says, man, that he's one of the funniest, most cheerful, playful, and nicest guys in rap. And that's what they experienced too. So to me, it seems like even back then, he was already using what he learned on the streets as marketing, but his personality also had another side. Another thing, guys, to wrap up, I think the biggest mistake we make looking back today is thinking that 50 Cent changed. Because if you look closely, you can see that he's still the same guy he's always been on both sides. When he was young, he used street smarts to survive. Later, he used music to destroy his rivals, then he learned to use business to accumulate power, and now he does it all. All of this through humor, memes, and the incredible reach he has on social media. In other words, the battlefield has changed, but the mentality hasn't. Maybe that's why a lot of people are still afraid of him. That's because everyone gets older, matures, and changes their mindset, but I don't think anyone can be as unpredictable in the rap scene as 50 Cent. And in Curtis Jackson's case, sometimes a single Instagram post can cause more damage than an entire diss track. And with that, we can conclude that online trolling isn't something that comes with age. It's just the same personality as always. But now, finally free from the bulletproof vest. But that's just my opinion. I want to know what you guys think. What do you all think? Comment everything down below. If you made it to the end of the video, comment Instagram down below. Those who complained about what I said in the video will be lost and not understand anything. And the link to the mentorship is also down below. We're in this together, guys, because I'm wrapping it up for now. Big hug from Gerson. See you in our next video. And thanks.